Hello, friends, and welcome back to Becoming Unbound. I'm your host, Carly, and this is the podcast where we break free from the boxes society tries to keep us in. Whether it's walking away from a 9 to 5, rewriting our beliefs around money, or choosing a totally new way of living, this is the space where we tell stories about freedom in all its forms. And today's guest is someone I had the absolute pleasure of connecting with last year, as in my former career, I was her daughter's camp counselor. How fun is that? So, Joy McCarthy is the founder of Joyous Health, a certified holistic nutritionist, best-selling author, and now the creator of her own top-of-the-line natural and organic skincare line. She's been featured in hundreds of publications and is a regular TV health expert and has helped people across the globe feel their absolute best. Enjoy this conversation and get ready to learn more about living unbound. Let's dive in.
Hi.
Hi, Joy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. When you're doing my intro, I was thinking about when you were Vienna's camp counselor and how that felt like such a freeing experience for her. Being in High Park and not having like this, like so many camps have like these very strict itineraries. It's like 10 o'clock is this and 10:30 is that. So she loved it. Just being out in nature and being unbound, as you said.
That was honestly one of my first introductions to the idea of freedom. And I'm like, wow, we've got these like literal free range children, like in
Yeah.
High Park. We didn't have like, there's structures in the park, but there was no like home base. Like we were roughing it. Like I remember Sundays in pouring rain, we would
Oh my
find
gosh, yes.
shelter. Like it was a freeing experience. And I think even some of the parents and kids were like, where do you go to like a house or something? I'm like, no, we are in the park all day. It was such a wild concept and I got used to it, right? Like I'm like, oh yeah, we're in High Park. This is what we do. And it was interesting to watch new community members come in and be like, you're just outside all day. I'm like, yeah, we are wild and free in High Park.
Isn't it funny how as adults we kind of like forget that that's like our nature. Like Vienna she didn't care. She was happy aside, like, remember Vienna was in the week where there was that insane storm where like basically High Park was like underwater, as was your car. That was crazy. But the kids, like for them, it's like exciting and fun. And they're just happy to be there and be outside.
Like there's this wildness in them. And some of the kids were like, I was like, I decided that we should like call parents. It was a day we were going to do a bit of a half day. And some of the kids were like, I don't want to leave. This is fun. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be here, but like, let's hang out in the rain. And it ended up like the clouds parted and it just ended up being this beautiful day. Some kids came back. Like it was such a freeing experience for everyone. And it was so interesting to see that the kids were like so unbothered by
Yeah. Oh, I know.
everything going on
It's the
around
parents,
them.
honestly. I always say this to my husband Walker, like, when we're like, when anyone's nitpicking over stuff, it's like the kids don't really care. Like, it's like when you have these like play dates and like you feel like you need to have an itinerary for our kids' play date, which reminds me of yesterday. Vienna had two of her girlfriends over. And I was thinking a few days earlier, I'm like, oh, maybe I should go and like go to Michael's and like put some crafts together for them. And then I was like, no, you know what? The three girls can just figure it out and have fun. And I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And they're going to do, they're 9. So it's not like I have to be like helping them with anything. Anyways, it was fine. They figured it out.
I love that. Where does that go, I wonder?
Yeah, I don't know. The society tries to tear us down.
Yeah, it's so interesting that all of a sudden it's like something, I mean, it probably happens slowly over time that all of a
Yeah.
sudden this like wild, unbound part of us just goes like quiet. And
Yeah.
it would be so interesting to like trace back to like, when does that happen? Where did I lose that little wild part of me? And I know some kids like don't really have it at all, and some kids are like in it for a very long time. And so it's so interesting to me, like, how do we become so bound?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
for
Well, I
whatever
think
reason.
Yeah, I feel like a lot to do with parenting too. Like it's parents who have high expectations of their kids. You must go to university. You must buy your first house by X date. You must by X age. You must have children. Like I think a lot of it comes down to parenting and how many, I feel like a lot of children have their parents have very high expectations. I think it's good to have expectations. You want the best for your kids, but is what you think the best really the best for them? So I've always tried to be, as a mom, I've always tried to be really aware of that. And my husband and I joke around because I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if Vienna ended up being a nutritionist or a naturopathic doctor? And my husband Walker's like, or if she wants to be an accountant, or we always so we joke, but I'm like, okay, right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I feel so much comes down to parenting. And then when you're in school and how your school is structured and just like these expectations of like post-secondary education and society has these expectations, as do parents. So I feel like a lot of times I've had to really like check myself, like Vienna should follow in the path that she is passionate about because that is where she's going to be the happiest. And I've always felt with business, where you find your passion, profit will follow. And I feel that if you can always make sure you marry those two together, that you will be successful in business. And it's when you're not passionate about your career that you feel like you're broke. Even if you're making a lot of money, you just always feel broke because you're just trying to fill up your life with things that you think that you're passionate about because you can afford them. But I feel like profit always follows passion.
Yeah, I love that, and it really relates to, like, the idea of, like, checking society's boxes, and it always feels like if we aren't doing that or if our children aren't doing that, then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, I must be doing something wrong or we're missing out on this thing that society's told us that, like, you go out, you check the boxes, and just trust us. That will bring you happiness." And then you're doing it, you've got the job, you've got the house, you did all the things in line, and then you're like, "Oh gosh, that nope, there's
Yeah,
something more to this life." And it's so beautiful to know that there's another generation coming up and they will have a better understanding that these check boxes of society, it's time to start rethinking those and understanding that there is so much more out there and you don't have to be a firefighter, a nurse, a teacher. Like the world is so full of limitless possibility, and it's so
hmm,
beautiful to know that like there's this whole generation that's going to be open to everything that's different, whether it is going to university or college, or maybe, you walk out of high school with a business started. Like, who knows what
yeah.
is possible in this new frame of mind. So I love that you're giving that to Vienna. And it's a beautiful thing to know that there's so much coming in these next generations and with this next group of children growing up.
Totally.
Hey friends, quick little interruption because I wanted to ask, have you been thinking about starting a podcast but feel totally overwhelmed? Or maybe you already have one, but the editing, scheduling, and posting is a full-time job on its own? I get it. I was a teacher once, juggling everything and craving more freedom. Now I help people around the world launch and manage their podcasts without the stress. So, whether you're dreaming of finally hitting record or you're ready to grow your show into something that actually works for your business, I've got you. Editing, covered. Marketing, yep. Growth strategy, absolutely. It's a done for you solution that's as cozy as your favorite hoodie and as powerful as your story deserves. Head to carlybutlermedia.com to book a call with me today. Let's see if this is a fit and let's make podcasting feel easy again. Okay, now back to this magical conversation. So that brings me to my first question of sort of, and I guess going back to a little bit of like when does that moment, when do we start to become so bound in society? So for you, Joy, you've had quite a life of entrepreneurship, and I'd love to hear more about that. And then if you want to share sort of, was there a moment where you maybe were trying to check society's boxes
For sure.
and realize that that wasn't what was gonna bring you that purpose and that happiness and joy?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been multiple occasions. I think of I think of one personally and one professionally. So I'll just make it a short story of the personal one. So when I was in high school, I dated the same person for a very long time, and I was with them in my early 20s, and I married that person. And so I was with the same person for about 9 or 10 years. And I literally thought that I was supposed to marry my high school sweetheart, buy a house, white picket fence, have kids. And I literally on my wedding day was like, I don't like, there was just always this feeling in my gut, in my heart, that it just didn't feel, I was like, I don't know if this is what I should be doing, but I think I'm supposed to do this, but I'm not sure. So this like feeling inside me kept growing and growing. And I think I was only like 21. So obviously my husband now Walker, this is my second marriage, even though that sounds so weird to say, because I feel like that the joy of high school in my early 20s was a totally different person. But I had to go through that to realize what was on the other side. So I just felt like this like burning feeling like growing in my gut. And then after about a year and a half, I was like, nope, you know what? It's okay if I'm the black sheep of my family. No one has ever been divorced in my family. Everyone is happily married. My parents are high school sweethearts. My aunt and uncle are high school sweethearts. I was like, my brother and his wife are high school sweethearts. So it was so scary to me to break that mold. But I thought to myself every day, I thought, is this the person that I want to be slow dancing with when I'm 80? And the answer was a resounding no. So it took so much courage back then for me. I'm now 47. This was when I was in my early 20s. Like I said, it feels like a lifetime ago. It took so much courage to leave that relationship. I also had a lot of health issues in my teens and in my early 20s. And when I left that relationship, I was able to focus on myself. I was able to transform my wellness. And I just feel like that is what just set me soaring. I feel like I left my career. I was doing like a corporate 9 to 5. So many things in my life changed by making that massive and for me back then, it was a massive change because I was going against the grain of what everyone expected of me. And it was really hard because I had spent 10 years with one person who wasn't my person. So that was like the first time I kind of unbound myself from what other people's expectations were. And I was always, people always said about Joy's so sweet, Joy's so nice. So I felt like I almost always had to like live up to my name. And I was like, no, but this isn't what I want. And I know it's not very nice, but it's not what I want. And it was honestly, Carly, it was like slowly killing me. It was like this slow poison inside my body because I knew inside my cells this was not the path for me. So also when I was in that relationship, I really wanted to go back to school to study nutrition because my post-secondary education was marketing and advertising. I had a good corporate 9 to 5. I was making really good money, but I really wanted my whole life. I was always a student of nutrition, of wellness. It was always my passion. I was always into fitness and I really wanted to go back to school. And I remember being in that relationship and having that discussion. He was like, no, what, why? You're going to go from like making great money to making nothing and trying to start your business? Like, no. And so, yeah, wow. Like, so in my late 20s, I went back to school, became a holistic nutritionist. I left that corporate 9 to 5. It took me a few more years. So I had that relationship end sort of like early mid 20s. And then my later 20s, I went back to school and started my own business. And here I am today. So it's kind of crazy to like look back and see all the change that has happened.
Wow, what a leap of faith. That's wild, especially knowing that I'm sure, like, I don't how would you even deal with all the people saying like, no, you can't do this. This is who you are. You're so sweet, kind. Like, look at I'm sure there was like, look at our family. We've all
Yeah.
done this. Like, how do you deal with people? And I'm sure it's like you were probably a great wife and like you did all the things that you were supposed to do. Like, how do you deal with people like telling you, or was there like pushback from your family around that?
Well, what was interesting was my immediate family, my parents and my brother, everyone was like, thank goodness. I was so shocked. They're like, Joy, we knew, but you needed to know for yourself. And my parents were so supportive. It was more his side, very, very angry with me. And everyone was just it was just like not friendly. I can understand his family being angry, but it was like, it was not what I expected. It was like the best possible thing. I had the support of my family. And, even if I didn't have the support of my family, I would have found, like, I had obviously my friend group, I had my support system. So anyone listening to this, going through something where they don't have the support of of their family, and I feel a lot of times big decisions, people don't have the sort of support of their family. I feel like I was very lucky, but then that's where you really want to lean on your support system, your friends who can also be like family as well. So I'm really glad that I had that support system because it carried me through and it was so shocking. I was like, wow, okay, like my parents just want me to be happy. And it was my own, it was restrictions that I put these things on myself. It wasn't other people putting them on me. I put it on myself because I saw my parents married their high school sweethearts. I thought that's what you were supposed to do. But it was never Susan and Michael McCarthy, those are my parents. It was never them saying, Joy, this is what you must do. But of course, like children, like we observe, right? We observe our parents and we, I looked at them as being the perfect standard of like what I wanted to achieve. So it was really amazing that I had their support, and I had their support too when I decided that I wanted to leave, the marketing and advertising industry and get out of the corporate 9 to 5. That was also really scary, but I had the support of my parents who were like, you can do this. And it wasn't financial support. That was also scary because I didn't come from a well off or affluent family. Both my parents worked very hard. And so it wasn't like I had like that cushioning of like, okay, Joy, if you're going to do this, like we can help you pay your rent. Once in a while, my mom would help me with my groceries, but that was really about it. And that's why I was so motivated when I finished school as a nutritionist. I was like, I have to make this work because I have to pay my bills. I have to pay my rent. I have zero cushioning. I have no, and let me tell you, when you have that hanging over you, that is extremely motivating. I was like, I have to make this work, but I love what I do. And when I graduated, I was so green and so excited and just wanted to help people with their nutrition and help them with their wellness, that it, to me, I was just like, of course I'm going to make this happen. I don't have another option. This is just, it's going to happen.
That's incredible that and it's so funny that all of a sudden you spoke your truth. You all of a sudden were able to speak that piece of you that you'd maybe known about and then to be so well received. Like, I feel like that's a bit of it's the fairy tale version of what happens when you like do finally speak your truth and all these
Yes,
people around you are like, oh, finally, we're here for you. We've got you. And that's not always the case. And I think it's great advice to sort of like know that if that doesn't line up, you do have friends. You do have those soul brothers, soul sisters who come into your life
totally.
for those reasons. And what a blessing that you had the support. And I'm sure, yeah, on the other side, things like that get messy and to be able to take that leap of faith, speak your truth, and then be well received is just it's magical. And I'm so glad that you were able to follow your heart. And yeah, you probably had to just go through it and figure it out and understand that those were your expectations on yourself, not necessarily the expectations of your family, but society's programming runs deep. Like
Mm,
it's
it
a
does.
real deep programming, and to find the awareness for that is pretty incredible, especially, early 20s. That's a big thing. I can't say the same for myself, but like that is a really powerful thing. And I'm so glad you listened to your gut. And it sounds like then you went on to heal your gut.
Yeah, for sure. It was a journey, and since then there have definitely been other like big decisions I've had to make personally, and it's amazing because looking back, if I didn't I think of that movie. Do you know that movie Sliding Doors? I want to say it's like from the late night. It was Gwyneth Paltrow. Do you know that movie?
No.
Okay, so basically the premise of it is that it shows it shows her life, two options of her life. It flip flops back and forth. If she made this decision, this is the path she would take. If she made that decision, that would be the path she would take. And I often think of that because it doesn't mean that one path is better than the other. It's just it's interesting because I think I would never, if I didn't make those changes in my 20s, I wouldn't have my daughter. I would never have met Walker. I didn't meet Walker till my 30s, and he is my person. We've been married now 12 years, 11 or 12 years. And I remember in my late 20s, early 30s thinking to myself, am I ever going to like meet someone who fully aligns with me? Like, I don't know if it's in store for me, and that's okay. And I remember thinking to myself back then, I want to be a mom. I've always wanted to be a mom, and if I don't find the right person, I will still find a way to be a mom. I'll be a single mom and I will figure it out. And I had this client. I remember, I think her name was Christy or Kristen, and I remember her telling me that she met the love of her life. And we had this whole discussion about how madly in love she was. And she was so happy. And she's like, I remember her saying to me, Joy, that person is out there for you. If I can find someone, you can too. And I remember she like gave me so much hope. And I just stuck that in my head because when I felt like, I mean, I was so young, but at the time I was like, oh my gosh, my age, how am I ever going to find someone again? Everyone I grew up with is already married, has kids like 10 years ago. And here I am, I'm like single. And so I was just like, I just, told myself it's not all about that. But then I did find my person. I was like, okay, okay. And it's not to say that I was on this journey to find a person because I wasn't. It's always when you least expect it. I was razor sharp focused on growing Joyous Health and growing my business. And that's when it happened, when I didn't have the focus on, oh, I really want to find a partner. So, yeah.
Yeah, in those moments where you're least expecting it and you give up and it's like, "Okay, I
Yeah.
give up. I'm laser focused on this." And it sounds like you were in alignment. Like everything you had made the big changes, you made the big shifts, you made huge decisions for yourself. You brought yourself into alignment with pure focus on everything that your soul was prepared to do on this earth. And all of a sudden that type of alignment is what then magnetizes energy that you need and the people and all of those things. And I can say for myself, yeah, there's definitely moments I remember I had completely given up on dating and I said it out loud. I was like, I quit. I'm done. Like
Yeah.
I'm absolutely done. And within 24 hours, it was like, oh, oh, okay, great. So it's
That's
really incredible.
amazing.
And I think also like that idea of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting older, the society is this, like, yeah, friends are moving on and you can look to other people's paths to say, I'm behind if I'm using that path as a measuring stick for my own life. But what happens if you like let go of that and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's their path. This is my
Mhm.
path and there is no more right path for me than the one I'm on right now in this now moment. And what a beautiful thing that you were able to, find that alignment and then magnetize that into your life. Like that's the dream. That's what we want. And that's what I feel like listeners on the podcast, this is what we're going for is like breaking free, coming into alignment, and then magnetizing everything into our lives. It
When
sounds so
you're talking, it was making me think, yes, I agree with everything you're saying. And it's making me think, because I feel I meet with a lot of like entrepreneurs who are just starting out and nutrition students. Um, and it's interesting because I feel like the quote comes to mind, comparison is the thief of joy. And I feel that when you get into that comparison mode, it really does. It's very like low vibrational energy and it really does bring you down. And I feel that when I was sort of in the early career of my entrepreneurship, because I was so razor sharp focused in business, I really had my blinders on. I don't know if it was ignorance is bliss, but I feel like I really was not paying attention to what other people were doing. Because if I did, I feel like that could have really brought me down. And so I feel it's really important not to compare yourself to someone else's journey, especially important with social media nowadays, because as we know, people just show their highlight reel. You know, some people, of course, show more, but it's just, you can't, it's just so easy to compare yourself to other people. But when you release that and it's like a mindset shift and you release that comparison, you're able to, it's just like freeing. It's freedom. There you go. This aligns with your podcast. It's freedom.
Yeah.
Releasing comparison. So key.
Yeah, I think it's so easy with social media, and then you're so connected to people in your life, right? Like I'm sure now with Facebook, Instagram, you can see all the people that were maybe in your same, graduating year, whatever it is, and you like in I don't how many years ago would this be where you would have no idea what those people were up to, right? Like if they had babies, if they changed their career, if they got married, and now we have this instant access to everyone, and it's like, okay, well, now every other day there's an engagement announcement, there's a baby announcement, and you all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's not happening to me. I better keep up or I better do something to
Yeah.
make sure that I'm there. And it's like a couple of, even like 2 decades ago, we wouldn't have known about that at all, aside from like letters or like the people that you
Right.
really keep close to you, right? So I think it's so interesting now that we have this measuring stick available on your phone where you can see all this stuff, compare yourself, maybe get down on yourself, sink into that low vibration, and then you're like, okay, well, that's not my path. And finding radical self acceptance for that and saying, I'm going slower, or I'm adventuring into different things before that happens. And like, you can always keep that within your values and your goals. And you always did. You always wanted to be a mom. And then you just let things kind of go, like surrendering to your own path and letting go of the comparison is such a beautiful way to understand what freedom can be, which brings me to my next question. I'd love for you to, if you've thought about freedom before, like how does it show up for you? What's your definition of freedom for yourself as an entrepreneur, as a mom, as a wife? Like what does that look like for you if you were to try to define freedom for yourself?
Freedom for me is doing what I want, when I want, how I want, essentially. However, I realize that there are some restrictions to doing what I want, when I want, how I want. But, I put my wishes out into the universe. I write things down. These are the things I want to achieve. These are my dreams and my goals. And then I go about trying to figure it out. And sometimes, certain expectations or certain things I want to do don't work out exactly, but it's having the freedom to have those dreams and know that, okay, if I really want to make this happen, I can make this happen. And I feel like the first time I ever felt a lack of freedom was definitely 2020, like around the pandemic. That was the first time that I actually ever really thought of what freedom was. I didn't realize, years earlier when we talked about the things that I broke free from, I didn't realize at the time when I was going through that journey that really, as we're talking, I'm having this epiphany, realizing that I was breaking free, and that in itself was freedom. But in terms of defining freedom, I never really thought about it in those terms until being told I can't do certain things. So freedom is just having the freedom of choice, um, being able to go places you want to go, being able to love who you want to love. I feel like all of those things to me are freedom. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, yeah, the freedom of choice. And I think, and whether that is choice of time, choice of who you spend your time with, choice of where you go in the world, where you work in the world, who you work for in the world. I think, all those like 5 W's of like the how you want to run your life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that looks different for you. Like there's obviously these restrictions. And I think freedom, as long as you are not sort of impeding on others' ability to live their life the way they want to live. And I think there was 2020 was a very specific time frame where we were all like like certain things all of a sudden you were like, oh, I'm not allowed to go that what like the math wasn't mathing, and that was where we really suddenly felt like there was a lack of
Yeah.
freedom. And I think it's kind of like you look back on it, it's kind of a blessing, because if we didn't have that time and we were told where to go, how to do it, and what to wear when you went to those places, like, and how your body was supposed to show up, these things don't come to light unless they are taken away from you, right?
That's so true.
And you wouldn't know what freedom was. Like before that, like I do not think I ever thought about freedom ever, aside from maybe the one time I was living in Vietnam and riding on a motorcycle and I was like, "Oh, this is freedom." But
Yeah,
like
oh, I bet. That would be very
freedom, like,
freeing.
is it's kind of a necessary evil to then all of a sudden be like, "Oh, I know what it feels like to have that taken away, and I vow to myself, my family, whatever it is, that that won't happen again in whatever means that I have to make that happen." And I think that goes back to the power of choice and understanding that, you know, a lot of choices were taken away at that time, but we wouldn't have known what it was until we
Yeah, and we wouldn't have found so many people that we align with. I think about that time actually, what came up for me was I remember so specifically, I'm very close with my parents. And I remember being told my parents live about 45 minutes away from me. And I remember being told that I couldn't visit them. We weren't supposed to drive that far. And I remember talking to my mom and being like, hey, like, how do you feel about this? She's like, well, I want to see you. And I was like, well, I want to see you too. So we never, throughout all that time period, felt restricted. I just saw my mom anyway. Maybe by telling this, putting this out there, maybe people would be like, oh my God, Joy's a criminal. That was illegal. But so even though, my freedom, people were trying to take my freedoms, I was kind of like, no, I make this choice. I see my parents because they are an important part of my life and my well being, and vice versa. So, but
yeah,
of
and
course there was, yeah. Without
there
going down that rabbit hole, I just
and I think that's just like you checked in. That's, I think, the key piece here is that you checked in with each other. You understood that you weren't like impeding on anyone else's freedom or their choices to stay inside or whatever it was. And you guys made a personalized choice in that moment between two individuals that were important to each other. And you reconciled with that, knowing that like that was your choice in the end. And whether love, family, connection is at the top of that, or maybe for some people it was safety and mitigating risk, and that was top of mind for them. Like that's okay too.
for sure.
But you made a choice with that other individual person, and you were able to enact on that freedom even when you were told, because you know what, you're looking around, you're like, well, no one's going to be hurt from this. I'm not, you're not. Let's make a choice. Okay. And let's go through it. And I think that like negotiation in your mind all of a sudden is like, oh, it's just here. It's just in my mind.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Isn't that a
right.
cool exercise to know that like, yes, you were being told one thing, but you put on your critical thinking hat and you're like, okay, this makes sense for both of
Exactly.
us. I love that definition of freedom, freedom of choice. And here you are. I think now we've all changed our lives to make sure that like things like that maybe don't happen again, or that you just like keep that critical thinking hat on, and that you're like,
Mhm.
okay, freedom of choice
Totally.
is my value versus freedom of like never being sick. Maybe that's top of mind for some people. And I totally,
Mhm.
neither is wrong or bad, but it's important to have those personalized decisions for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Joy, if someone is feeling like maybe they are like you, maybe they did marry their high school sweetheart and they have this feeling in their stomach and they don't know what to do, they're feeling super bogged down. Maybe if you could think about it from the lens of giving your younger self a piece of advice or someone who's feeling stuck, what would that piece of advice be? What's that first baby step that you're like, just try doing this little thing and see what happens?
Yeah, I think so to my younger self, I would remind myself that it's all about baby steps. You don't have to make these gigantic changes all at once. So whether it's a relationship or whether you're, I hear from a lot of people who are, working the corporate 9 to 5 and they really don't want to be and they want to do something different. And so to those people, I always say, well, like, why can't you just start taking courses or doing schooling part time? Like take the baby steps. And, people and I know I was so focused back then on like, okay, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if making this big change doesn't work out? And what I would say to that little Joy is, what if it does work out? Right? There's it could go either way, but you're not going to know unless you try. And living this miserable life is not is not serving any is not serving you any good. So to someone who's not in a healthy relationship, like just listen. I know it sounds so cliche, but really it's like listen to your intuition, listen to that quiet voice, listen to your gut because it can never I personally think that whenever I've listened to my gut, it has never led me astray. Sure, it might be a bumpy road and nothing's ever easy, but it's just that when you're whether you're following your passion because you're not happy in your career or whether you feel like you need to leave a relationship that's not serving you, there's just a level of freedom that you experience when you make that decision and take that scary first step. And instead of thinking, oh well, what all the bad things that could happen, well, what if those things don't happen? What if it's the best thing ever? So I think to keep focusing on that, what if it's the best thing ever? Because we create all these what ifs, right? So shift those what ifs to what if it's the best thing ever, and you're never going to know unless you try. And the thing is, like, with career, it doesn't, like, nothing is ever, and even with relationships too, like, you can work stuff out. Meaning, if you decide that this relationship isn't serving you and you decide, okay, we need to make a change, maybe it's going to therapy. Maybe that transforms your relationship, right? Or if you take this leap and you leave your job and you hate it, you don't like what you're doing anymore, it doesn't mean that you can't go back and try and get another corporate 9 to 5 if you realize, because some people, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. If you're there's some people who really thrive on a routine, on having a secure paycheck, and it really isn't for everybody. So I know people, when I think of people I went to school with, for example, who set out to be an entrepreneur and then realized they actually preferred to work for someone else. And that's fine too. So it doesn't mean if you go down one path, you can't change your mind. So going into it knowing that there's no clear path. We don't have a crystal ball. There's no clear path set out for you. So you just have to take a jump.
Yeah. And baby jumps, like little baby jumps.
Yeah.
I love that. And I even love the idea of like what I'm kind of hearing is that like just start thinking about what's possible. Like you don't have to do anything on the external world. You could just have these baby steps
Hmm.
happening in your mind, right? Like think about something. It's like if you're feeling stuck, like think about what could happen. Imagine the possibilities. I mean, our anxieties and our feelings of like keeping our body safe and secure really they get really elevated when you start to think about doing things differently. But I love that you said, like, take those baby steps. Nothing is permanent. If
Hmm.
you do step into entrepreneurship and you do realize that it's not there, like that was the thing that I told myself that if this doesn't
Yeah.
work out, teaching is always going to be there for me. Like
Yeah.
I can, oh, and I made sure that when I, made my exit, like I kept those relationships
I
and
was just gonna say, don't
understood,
burn
like,
bridges.
don't burn bridges, leave as gracefully as possible, take the leap as gracefully as you can, and then know that like those things are always going to be there for you. And you have to find out whether that, entrepreneurship is there for you, or maybe you work for another entrepreneur because,
Mhm.
not everyone is meant to start their own
Yeah.
business. So I love that it's just like, take those baby steps, know that it's something else is going to be there for you in the end. And I think that feels a little safer sometimes. And that's maybe what we need in the feeling, in those first steps and the first thoughts of like, I need to change. But let's, maybe, yeah, try out therapy in a relationship. Try out taking a course to see if you even like the thing that you're passionate about in a more serious business way. So that's amazing advice. And I really, I think that honors us feeling safe and secure
Mhm.
while starting to tiptoe into unknown waters.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
love
same
that.
like when people are like on like a health journey. I always say like people want this like people are like think like a dramatic change. I'm going to totally change my diet. I'm going to work out every single day. I'm going to be in bed by 9:30. Like it's just so overwhelming for people when they're on like these health journeys and health transformations. And I've always said it as a nutritionist, like baby steps. Just get a good breakfast for the next 2 weeks. That's the only thing that you're going to focus on, that you're having protein and fat at breakfast, nothing else, and then build from there. And I feel like that really is the way to success, because I've seen so many people, so many clients over the years that go want to do this dramatic change, and really you're just setting yourself up for failure. Like, do the baby steps, get more comfortable with it. It gives you confidence. You feel empowered in the changes that you're making. And of course, there's some people who do a dramatic change and it works great for them, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah. That's great advice. And I think it really honors like, because our human brain is wired for that like negativity bias, right? So
Hmm.
just flip it, understand that those thoughts are going to come up and then start creeping towards something that feels good and empowered. Then all of a sudden you are celebrating those little wins and those little, oh yeah, I did eat breakfast for 2 weeks in a row because I used to just skip it and have coffee on an empty stomach. It's like, okay,
Right.
well now you had breakfast 2 weeks in a row. What else is possible?
Totally. I
Yeah.
love that. What else is possible?
And I just wanted to touch on your skincare line because I feel like there is a piece of freedom in this. And I feel like there's something, I had this feeling I got to ask, like, there's so much out there in the world of skincare and things and chemicals, and we're figuring out all the
Mm.
toxins and we're understanding way more about our bodies and the really heavy loads that we have. So, what inspired you to create this skincare line, and what was the thing that either sparked it or what was that thing for you?
Well, so when I first started my business, which was in 2009 as Joyous Health, I was always, my main goal was that I wanted to inspire and empower people to live a toxin free lifestyle and to take better care of themselves. And so with Hello Joyous, so we launched Hello Joyous in April 2023. And Hello Joyous is, we have skincare, body care, hair care, and so really that like same mission from Joyous Health of wanting to inspire people and empower people to live a toxin free lifestyle was really the foundation of Hello Joyous. Like really Hello Joyous is holistic, is how do I say this? Is founded in holistic wellness. It's where holistic wellness meets high performance skincare. And so everything that supports Joyous Health has supported, this content machine that I've created over the last 15 years. That same mission and that same wanting goodness for people, wanting to do something different that's like legit clean, that performs, is really like the basis for Hello Joyous. It was born really from like holistic wellness and holistic health versus oftentimes there's an angle of like pharmaceutical skincare, um, skincare with like a million different ingredients because they're trying to, a lot of most skincare and beauty products are marked up by 700%. So a lot of brands go into this. It's just all about profit. And I feel like that is what makes us really different, because Hello Joy is being founded by me and my husband. I'm, as you know, a holistic nutritionist. Every product is thoughtfully created, certified organic, organic concentrated botanicals. Without going into the nitty gritty of all that, that's a really long winded answer. But it's like Hello Joyous is not just a skincare brand. It's a wellness brand because you'll feel good using it. It's a trusted product you can use on your baby. You can use on your 100-year-old grandmother's dry feet.
I love it. And I love that, yeah, like there's such a trap of like having the best skincare and there's so much out there that it can feel so overwhelming. So I love that you're offering like something that is just trusted, not only from your background of like knowing that has always been your mission in this career of yours. And so it feels like how can I not trust exactly what's going into this skincare? And I feel like there's a level of freedom in it that you can just
Mhm.
like not be thinking and you can, you know, order from you. And I feel like it's not just like, you're hoping, wishing, like all of a sudden you're like, I don't have to think about this anymore. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what
I
we
free up a part
exactly.
of my mind so that I just don't have to like think about the things and what's in it? Like, should I check it? Is it EWG verified? Like all of these things that take up so much mental capacity for us as we're
Mhm.
trying to figure out what's best for ourselves and our families. You've taken that kind of away from us and you free up more of our time and space to live a more healthy, toxin free, unbound life.
So I appreciate what you said so much because that's exactly the experience we want people to have. And there's certainly, I would say, the large bulk of our customers feel the way you do. It's people who don't know our brand, which is always the challenge, right? It's like, how do you acquire those new customers and then build that trust? So, one thing I'm always so focused, and I feel like we take great pride at Hello Joyous, is creating a joyful experience from like beginning to end. So, from our like beautifully designed packaging, which is all sustainable in glass, to, a beautiful unboxing experience where you're not like seeing bubble wrap plastic and you open a bottle and it's a joyful experience because you're not getting like boom a cloud of like synthetic fragrance hitting your nose, and the experience of using it on your body and knowing it's hormone disrupting free products, without any synthetics or additives or products that are waterless. So it's all about, I'm just always wanting to create like the most joyful experience possible so that people build that trust. Because what you said is what I want everyone to feel, to just know, okay, Hello Joyous, I can trust Hello Joyous, but it's the new people, right? Who are like, well, what's Hello Joyous? How do I? So that's why I always on social media and on our website, was just like always trying to educate people on wellness as opposed to just being like, buy our product, just trust us, buy our product, really empowering people to like live a toxin free lifestyle, which sounds so, I don't know, I feel like everyone says that, but but we're really doing it. That's the difference.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that it's been created for that purpose and for people who are aligned to that specific need and value that in their life. And I think that really does like align with the idea of like awakening to everything that's going on around us and the expectations of, yeah, you want to be toxin free. And like there's this whole community where it's like it sometimes can be really, really overwhelming.
Yes,
So I
yes, you're
think
absolutely right.
what you're doing is so great to be able to just like simplify it, unbind ourselves from all of the wild things out there and just make it really simple and joyful. And like shouldn't that's just how our life should be most of the time, right? That's the
Yeah.
goal anyways.
Well, I feel like when you come back to nature, like nature is so simple. And I feel like no matter what product, whether I'm using a product in my home, I'm using our cleanser on my face, like I want to know, and with my food, I want to know what it's made of. So like fewer ingredients. When I'm cooking, it's like I use single ingredients from nature to create a meal. And I feel like it's just so much more simple when you look at your food that way, when you look at what you're using in your home, when you look at your clothing. What is your clothing made of? Is it made of, all microplastics, recycled plastic water bottles, or is it made of cotton or linen, right? So like if you just if you have like a foundation of nature and you come back to that, it's really about a less is more approach. fewer ingredients in your body, on your body, in your home, more from nature. There we go. That's my new slogan.
I love it. I love it. So, Joy, if people want to find you, where can they find you? What are all the handles? Let us know where we can find you on the worldwide internet.
Yeah. So my personal brand is Joyous Health, Joyous Health. So on IG, on joyoushealth.com, my website, where I have hundreds of recipes. And then my skincare beauty brand is Hello Joyous. So hellojoyous.com, or on IG, it's hellojoyous_. So you can find me there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Joy. This was an amazing conversation, and I'm so glad we made it happen.
Me
And
too.
yeah, just so grateful for our connection. This is great.
Me too. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you. Oh, what a joy it was. Yes, I had to to have Joy McCarthy on the podcast. I first met her last summer, and it's been such a beautiful connection thus far, from holistic nutrition to best-selling books and now launching this dreamy organic skincare line. Joy truly embodies what it means to live in alignment and inspire others to do the same. So if you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you'd like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a little boost of wellness and freedom in their life. It truly helps the show grow and reach more amazing listeners like you. Thanks again for tuning in, and stay tuned for our episode next week on Becoming Unbound.